The night sky burned red over the ruined alien battlefield. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Human soldier Elias Grant walked slowly through the wreckage, his armor scratched and scorched. His communication link was silent. There were no voices, no signals, no other heartbeat left in his scanner. His team was gone. The war between humans and the Vithari Empire had left only dust and broken machines behind. Elias limped between the remains of fallen ships, searching for anything useful: food, water, a working beacon. The ground was cracked and glowing with heat from recent explosions. He could still hear faint cries echoing from somewhere ahead. At first he thought it was the wind, but then the sound came again, weak and trembling. It was not human. It was softer, musical, and full of pain. He followed the sound through a broken ridge and found a silver craft half buried in the sand. The door had melted from a plasma blast. Inside he saw movement, someone trying to crawl toward the light. Elias stepped closer with his weapon ready. What he saw made him freeze. It was a young alien woman lying against the shattered metal. Her skin was light blue with faint silver patterns, her hair long and almost white. Her body armor was royal, decorated with markings he had seen before in enemy broadcasts. He realized who she was. She was Princess Lyria, heir to the Vithari Empire, the same one the humans had been fighting for months. Her breathing was shallow and her eyes were half open, fading in and out. Elias's training told him to stay away. The royal enemy was worth more dead than alive, but as he looked at her wounds, he saw that she was dying. A piece of shrapnel had pierced her chest and dark blood was pooling beneath her. She whispered something in her own language, a weak plea for help. Her translator badge flickered and translated one word: cold. Elias hesitated. He looked around the burning field, knowing no medics would come. No rescue ship was near. The war was over for both of them, only death waiting in silence. He dropped his weapon and knelt beside her. Her pulse was faint, almost gone. He opened his field kit and pulled out a compact transfusion tube, something used to stabilize wounded soldiers until help arrived. It could transfer blood between two people in emergencies. He checked her vitals with his scanner. The result blinked. Blood oxygen critical. Blood type close human match. He stared at the screen in disbelief. Human blood could maybe help, but only for a few minutes. It could also kill her, but leaving her would mean certain death. He looked at her face again, pale, trembling, desperate. "Hold on," he whispered. "You're not dying today." He removed his glove and pressed the needle into his own arm, connecting the tube to her vein. The machine hummed softly as red liquid began to flow. The process was risky. It drained his own strength quickly. He could feel his vision blur, but he stayed still. Minutes passed. Lyria's breathing changed slowly, then steadily. Her skin color deepened, returning to soft blue. Her hand moved slightly, touching his wrist. Her lips parted and she spoke in broken words, her voice quiet and clear. "Human. Why?" Elias forced a tired smile. "Because I can." She tried to understand, but her mind was weak. The transfusion light flickered. The scanner now showed both heart rates, hers climbing, his falling. His body shook from the loss of blood, but he didn't stop. He adjusted the flow, ignoring the pain in his arm. When he started to collapse, she caught his hand weakly. He could see her eyes now glowing faintly with light. It was not natural. The mix of blood was reacting inside her, merging human strength with alien energy. For a moment, the ship's walls pulsed with soft blue light, and Elias felt a strange warmth pass through the air. Then darkness began to close in around him. He heard footsteps outside. Voices in the alien tongue shouted orders. Lyria's people had come. He tried to move, but his strength was gone. Through fading sight, he saw armored Vithari soldiers surround them. One of them pointed a weapon at him. Before they could fire, Lyria raised her hand weakly. Her voice was soft but commanding. "No, he saved me." Her words echoed before Elias lost consciousness. The last thing he saw was her face, alive again, looking down at him with eyes full of confusion and something else. Gratitude. When the soldiers lifted him, he didn't resist. The world turned dark and his heartbeat faded in his ears. Above them, the red sky began to calm. The fires cooled and the wind carried away the smoke. The human warrior who gave his blood to his enemy lay silent beside the princess he saved. None of the soldiers understood what they had just witnessed. But one thing was clear. The moment his blood touched hers, something changed forever in both of them. And somewhere deep in the alien princess's veins, the memory of his heartbeat stayed alive, pulsing with a rhythm her people had never known before. Elias woke up to the sound of soft humming. His head felt heavy and his body weak. When he opened his eyes, a bright light blurred his vision. Slowly, everything became clear. The ceiling above him wasn't metal or stone, it shimmered like crystal. He was lying on a smooth surface that glowed faintly under his body. Around him stood tall alien figures in silver armor, their faces covered by masks that reflected his image. He tried to move, but his arms were restrained by bands of light. A strange machine was connected to his wrist, monitoring his pulse. Panic rose in him. He looked down and saw that his own blood was being filtered through tubes, but the machine wasn't draining. It was analyzing. He was in a medical chamber, but not a human one. Then a soft voice spoke from across the room. "You are awake, human." He turned his head and saw her, Princess Lyria, standing a few meters away. She was alive, her color restored, her movements graceful but still weak. A faint glow traced her veins like silver threads. She looked at him with calm eyes, but there was something new in them, an emotion he couldn't read. Elias tried to speak, but his throat was dry. "Where am I?" "You are inside the Royal Medical Ship," she said softly. "My guards brought you here after you saved me." Elias blinked. He remembered the battle, the blood, the soldiers, then nothing. "You remember that?" Lyria nodded slowly. "Every second. You gave your blood to me knowing it could kill you. I still do not understand why." He gave a faint smile. "Didn't have time to think." "You were dying." She tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. "Humans and Vithari are enemies. You could have walked away." "Maybe," he said, his voice low. "But I didn't." There was silence between them. The soft hum of machines filled the air. Then Lyria stepped closer. Her guards moved as if to stop her, but she raised a hand and they obeyed. She looked down at the human lying there, the one who had risked his life for her. "My healers say your blood reacted with mine," she said quietly. "It did more than heal me. It changed me." Elias frowned. "Changed you? How?" She lifted her hand and faint light glowed around her palm. "My body has more strength, more energy. They call it impossible. But your blood made it real." He looked at the light, amazed. "Guess that means humans aren't all weak after all." Her lips curved slightly, something between a smile and confusion. "You are different, human." She paused, then added, "Your name? Tell me." "Elias Grant," he said. "Sergeant, United Human Forces." "Elias," she repeated softly as if tasting the word. "It means strong in your language, yes?" He nodded slowly. "Something like that." Her eyes held his for a long moment. "Strong. Yes, you have that kind of strength, the kind my people have forgotten." A sudden noise interrupted them. The chamber door opened, and a group of tall Vithari entered. Their robes shimmered with royal symbols. The lead figure was older, with bright silver skin and eyes that glowed pale blue. Lyria bowed her head slightly. "Mother," she said. Elias realized who it was. The Queen of the Vithari. The Queen's gaze was sharp as she looked at the human. "This is the one who touched royal blood?" Her voice was cold, powerful. Lyria nodded. "He saved me." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Or infected you. We do not know what his blood has done to you." She turned to the guards. "Remove him." Lyria stepped forward. "No, Mother. You cannot harm him. Without him I would be dead." "Then perhaps that was fate," the Queen said sternly. "The human war has taken thousands of our lives. You would defend one of them." Lyria's tone softened but remained firm. "Yes, because he showed compassion when no one else would. His blood did not poison me, it healed me. You saw the results." The Queen hesitated, looking between them. Her advisors murmured, unsure what to say. The machines beside Elias continued to hum, showing readings the Vithari scientists could not explain. The fusion of human and alien cells was stable, perfect, impossible by every known rule. After a long silence, the Queen turned away. "Very well. The human lives. But he remains under watch. He does not leave this ship until I decide." The guards released Elias, though they stayed close. Lyria gave a small nod, grateful. As the Queen left, Elias let out a slow breath. "She doesn't like me much." Lyria looked at him with a faint smile. "She does not like anything that she cannot control." He chuckled weakly. "Then I'm in trouble." She took a small step closer. "You saved me, Elias. That will not be forgotten." He looked at her glowing eyes, so full of life again, and felt something stir in his chest, something that wasn't duty or survival. It was respect and maybe a strange connection neither of them could explain. As the lights dimmed and the hum of the ship filled the silence again, Elias closed his eyes, still weak but alive. Lyria stood beside him, silently promising herself that one day she would repay the human who gave his blood to save her life. Far outside, the ship drifted among the stars, carrying two beings whose destinies had quietly joined, one by blood, the other by choice. Elias woke again after 2 days. His strength had returned a little, and the strange bandages the Vithari used were smooth as silk, glowing faintly with energy. He sat up slowly and looked around the quiet medical room. Outside the glass wall he could see a huge alien city floating in the clouds, built from shining towers and bridges of light. Ships moved through the air like silver birds. It didn't feel like a place for a soldier. It felt like another world altogether. The door opened quietly. Princess Lyria entered with 2 guards carrying a small crystal device in her hand. She smiled slightly when she saw him awake. "You are stronger now," she said gently. Elias nodded. "Still tired, but better than before." "Where are we?" "In my city on Vethar Prime," she said, stepping closer. "The war ended 3 days ago. A ceasefire. My mother agreed to stop the fighting, at least for now. She said our people need to study. What happened between us?" Elias raised an eyebrow. "What happened between us?" She nodded seriously. "Your blood? It changed me. Our healers still test samples every hour. They say my body now has traces of human cells. They are peaceful, balanced, strong. They do not fight with my cells, they join them. They are confused. They do not understand how 2 different lives can exist in one body." Elias gave a small smile. "Maybe it's because we weren't that different to begin with." Lyria looked thoughtful. "Perhaps you are right. Humans always say strange things that sound simple but are full of meaning." She sat down beside his bed. "My mother wishes to meet you again. Not as a prisoner this time, but as a witness." Elias sighed. "I'm not sure I'm ready for royal meetings." "You will be fine," she said, her voice soft and calm. Later that day, guards escorted him to the throne hall. The place was enormous, made of glass that reflected the stars. The queen sat on a throne that floated slightly above the floor, her robes shining like liquid silver. Around her stood scientists, nobles, and soldiers, all staring at the human. Elias could feel their eyes judging him, but he stood tall and silent. The queen looked at him for a long time. "You are the human soldier who gave blood to my daughter." "Yes," he said simply. "Do you know what your action has done?" Elias hesitated. "I saved a life." The queen's eyes narrowed. "You changed one. My daughter is not the same anymore. Her strength has grown. Her senses are sharper. Even her voice carries power. The council believes your blood awakened something inside her." Elias frowned. "That doesn't sound bad." "To us, it is both a miracle and a danger," the queen said firmly. "Our healers believe this new energy could spread. It could alter others. Some of my advisors fear it might destroy what makes us Vithari." He looked at Lyria, who stood quietly beside her mother. "Maybe it's not destruction," he said. "Maybe it's evolution." The hall went silent. The queen's expression didn't change, but her eyes flickered with thought. "You speak as if you understand us." "I don't," he admitted. "But I know life. Every world fights to survive. Sometimes it changes to keep living. That's not weakness, it's hope." The queen looked at him for a long time before saying, "Hope is not a word our kind uses often." "Maybe that's the problem," Elias said softly. The hall stayed silent again. Lyria watched him with quiet pride. For a human standing before an alien queen, he showed no fear. The queen finally spoke again. "You are bold for someone without power." Elias gave a tired smile. "I don't need power. I just do what's right." The queen stood from her throne. "You are still a soldier of an enemy world. I cannot release you freely. But I will not harm you. You will stay here as our guest until we decide what must be done." Elias bowed his head slightly. "As you wish." When the hall emptied, Lyria walked beside him down a corridor filled with light. She looked at him curiously. "You spoke to my mother as if she were one of your soldiers." He chuckled. "Old habit. I talk to everyone the same way," she smiled. "That is rare here. Most fear her. She's your mother," he said. "You don't?" Lyria hesitated. "Sometimes. But today when you spoke I saw her think. No one has done that in years." They stopped near a large window. Outside, the twin suns were setting, painting the sky in gold and violet. Elias leaned on the railing, his eyes reflecting the color. "Beautiful place you have," he said. "It is," she whispered, looking at him. "But I think it was missing something before you came." He looked at her, unsure what to say. Her eyes glowed softly, like stars beneath the glass ceiling. For the first time since the battle, Elias felt peace. Not the peace of victory, but the peace that came from connection. In that silent moment, surrounded by alien light, two beings from different worlds stood side by side, no longer enemies, but something new. And though neither spoke of it, both could feel the invisible bond in their blood. The heartbeat that once saved a life now joining two destinies in a way no empire or army could ever undo. Days passed quietly inside the great Vithari city. Elias was kept in a tall crystal chamber that overlooked the clouds. He was not a prisoner, but guards still followed him wherever he went. His room had soft blue light, clean air, and strange food that glowed faintly. Everything was different but peaceful. For the first time since the war began, he was not holding a weapon. Every morning, Princess Lyria came to visit. She brought him new food to try, sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet. They talked about Earth, about her world, and about how strange it felt that two enemies could sit together and share stories like friends. Elias taught her small Earth words like thank you and brave. She liked how those words sounded, simple but full of feeling. One evening, she brought him to a balcony garden high above the city. The air was cool and filled with glowing plants. Water flowed in long silver streams through glass channels. The sky was turning dark, showing thousands of stars. She looked at him and said quietly, "Do humans look at the stars like this?" Elias nodded. "Yes, every night before battles I used to watch the stars. They made me feel small but not alone." She smiled. "That is beautiful. We were taught to look at stars and think of power, not peace. You see them differently." "Maybe that's why we fight," he said softly. "We see different things in the same sky." Lyria looked at him, thinking about his words. The silence between them was not awkward. It was peaceful, like the quiet of two souls learning to understand each other. Later that night, the calm was broken. The city alarm sounded deep and loud. Red lights flashed through the halls. Elias jumped up, but the guards blocked him. Lyria came running, her face tense. "It's an attack," she said. "Some of our fleets don't accept the ceasefire. They believe the human blood inside me is a threat." Elias clenched his fists. "You mean your own people are trying to kill you?" She nodded, fear and anger in her eyes. "They think I am not Vithari anymore." He looked at her, his soldier's instincts returning. "Where's your mother?" "She is in the upper palace." "I must go to her." "Then I'm coming with you," he said firmly. "You are not armed," she said. "I don't need to be," Elias replied. "I've survived worse." They ran together through bright corridors as the sound of explosions shook the air. Soldiers rushed past, shouting commands in the Vithari language. The outer shields were under attack. Lyria and Elias reached the upper platform where the queen and her guards were surrounded by fire and smoke. Enemy ships, rebels from their own world, hovered in the distance firing plasma rounds. The queen looked at Elias with shock as he helped one of her injured guards. "You should not be here, human," she said sharply. "With respect, Your Majesty, I'm not watching her die again," Elias answered. Lyria moved beside her mother. "We must retreat to the inner vault," she said. Before they could move, a blast hit the platform. The queen fell and Lyria caught her. Smoke filled the air. Elias lifted a fallen shield and stood in front of them, blocking debris. His arms burned, but he didn't stop. The sound of plasma fire echoed through the hall. Then something strange happened. Lyria's hands glowed again, the same light that once appeared during the transfusion. It grew brighter, spreading across her body. The light expanded into a wide blue field, forming a protective dome around them. The next blast hit the dome but bounced away harmlessly. Everyone froze. The soldiers stared in disbelief. Lyria looked down at her hands, trembling. I can control it now," she whispered. Elias looked at her proudly. "Looks like my blood gave you a little human stubbornness." The queen stood up slowly, watching her daughter. "You are stronger than before," she said quietly. "Stronger than any Vithari I have seen." Lyria turned to her mother. "It is not just strength, it is life. Human blood didn't curse me. It taught me to protect, not destroy." The queen looked at Elias again, her expression softer this time. "You saved her once with your blood. Now you save her again with your courage. Elias smiled faintly. Guess I'm making a habit of it. As the rebels retreated, the queen ordered her fleet to cease fire. The attack ended as quickly as it began. Smoke cleared and the night sky returned to calm. The palace stood damaged but still strong. Later, in the quiet after the battle, Lyria and Elias stood together again on the same balcony where they had watched the stars. The city below glowed softly with new life. She looked at him with tired but peaceful eyes. You could have stayed hidden, but you came back for us. He shrugged lightly. I don't walk away from people I care about. Her heart felt warm at those words. She wanted to thank him, but the feeling was deeper than any word she knew. My people will never forget what you did today, she said. And neither will I. Elias looked up at the sky. Maybe one day your people and mine will stop counting enemies and start counting lives saved instead. She followed his gaze to the stars and whispered, Maybe that day has already begun. They stood together under the silent heavens, 2 lives joined by blood, courage, and trust. Neither human nor alien could explain what bond had formed between them, but both knew it would shape the future of 2 worlds forever. Days turned into weeks after the attack. The palace was being repaired and the Vithari city slowly returned to peace. The rebellion had failed, but the memory of it left a scar across the kingdom. Many people now looked at Princess Lyria with both fear and wonder. Some saw her as a savior, others as a symbol of change, and in every story they spoke of the human warrior who had stood beside her. Elias had become a quiet presence in the palace. He was given a room near the royal gardens, a place filled with strange flowers that glowed at night. He spent his days walking through the corridors, helping repair damaged systems and learning about Vithari ways. He had no armor, no orders, no battlefield, only calm days filled with questions about what he was supposed to do next. Lyria visited him often. She no longer needed guards when she walked the halls. Her new strength gave her confidence. Sometimes she would sit beside him while he repaired broken equipment. You are still a soldier, she said one afternoon as he adjusted a damaged panel. Old habits die hard, Elias replied with a small smile. You could rest, she said softly. You have earned it, he looked at her. Rest is for people who know where they belong. I'm still figuring that out. Lyria fell silent, watching his hands work. Do you miss your world? Every day, he admitted. The smell of rain, the sound of the sea, the way people laugh even when things go wrong. He looked at her. But I don't regret staying here, not after what we've been through. Her heart felt a quiet ache. When I close my eyes, she said slowly, I hear your heartbeat inside my own. The healers say it is because of the blood bond, but I think it is more than that. It reminds me that life is shared, not owned. Elias looked away, trying to hide the emotion in his eyes. You sound more human every day, she smiled softly. Maybe that is not such a bad thing. That night the queen called for Elias. Her voice through the communicator was calm but serious. When he entered the royal chamber, the queen stood near a wide window staring at the stars. Elias Grant, she said without turning. I have made a decision. He waited quietly. You are freed to return to your people, she said. A peace treaty is being written. Our war with humanity has ended. You may go home. Elias's chest tightened. He had dreamed of that moment for months, yet now it didn't feel like he expected. I see, he said quietly. The queen finally faced him. Her expression was unreadable. You changed the course of our world, human. Your blood, your actions, they have altered the history of my people. For that I thank you. But my daughter's connection to you cannot continue. Her future lies with her kind. He nodded slowly. I understand. When he turned to leave, she said softly, Take this. In her hand was a small crystal sphere. It carries our royal mark. If you ever need protection, show it to any Vithari ship, and they will honor you. He took it with quiet respect. Thank you, Your Majesty. Outside the hall, Lyria was waiting. She had heard the news already. Her eyes were calm, but her voice trembled. So you are leaving? Elias nodded. Your mother's orders. I can't stay, she looked down. It feels wrong. After everything, you just disappear. He smiled faintly. I'm a soldier, Lyria. We always move on. That's how we survive. She stepped closer, her voice soft. But you did more than survive. You gave life to me, to my people. That is something no soldier has ever done. He looked at her, memorizing her face, the faint glow of her skin, the calm strength in her eyes. And you showed me that enemies can become something more. The next day, the royal fleet prepared his ship. It was a small craft, filled with supplies and fuel for the journey back to Earth. Lyria stood near the ramp as he loaded his last bag. The wind carried her hair across her face, and the sky above them shimmered with light. She handed him a pendant shaped like a silver tear. "Keep this," she said. "It is my royal seal. If you ever see the stars again and remember me, hold it close." He took it gently. "I'll keep it safe." For a long moment, they stood in silence. Neither spoke. There were no words strong enough to express what they both felt. Finally, she whispered, "Goodbye, Elias." He smiled faintly. "There's no goodbye between friends. Only distance." As the engines began to hum, Lyria stepped back. The ship lifted slowly into the sky. She watched until it became a tiny light fading among the stars. Her chest felt heavy, but she knew something deep inside her had changed forever. Elias watched the blue planet of Vethar shrink behind him. He held the pendant in his hand, feeling the soft warmth it carried. He thought of her eyes, her voice, and the strange bond that no science could ever explain. When the stars filled the window of his ship, he whispered to himself, "Maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's just another beginning." And far behind him, on a world of light and glass, Princess Lyria stood under the same stars, holding her heart and silently promising that one day their paths would cross again. Years passed since Elias Grant left the world of the Vithari. Life on Earth had slowly returned to peace after the long war. Cities were rebuilt, fields grew green again, and people tried to forget the pain of the past. But some names were never forgotten. One of them was Elias, the soldier who disappeared beyond the stars. He lived quietly on the far edge of a small mountain town. His home was simple, built by his own hands. Every evening he sat outside with a cup of tea and watched the stars. They no longer looked like distant lights to him. He had seen what lay among them. He had seen kindness in a world that once called him enemy. On his table sat the silver pendant that Princess Lyria had given him. Sometimes it shimmered softly, as if it still carried a trace of her light. Whenever it glowed, he smiled faintly, remembering her voice. One calm night, the stars above began to move. At first, Elias thought it was just a passing ship, maybe a new satellite. But then he noticed something strange. The light was too bright, too close, and too silent. It grew larger until it filled the sky with a blue aura. The wind around his house trembled. Elias stood up slowly. The light descended behind the nearby hills. He could feel the ground shake for a moment, then fall silent again. His heart beat faster, the same way it had years ago on the battlefield. Without hesitation, he took his old coat, slipped the pendant around his neck, and began walking toward the light. When he reached the ridge, he saw it, a silver vessel half hidden by mist. Its design was not human. Smooth lines, glowing edges, and a faint hum that felt alive. The air around it shimmered with static. A ramp opened, releasing a wave of soft blue light. From the ship, a figure stepped out. At first he thought it was Lyria herself. The same blue skin, the same silver eyes, the same gentle grace. But when the figure spoke, the voice was younger, softer, full of wonder. "Are you Elias Grant?" she asked. He froze for a moment. "Yes," he said slowly. "Who are you?" The girl stepped closer. She wore light armor with royal markings and carried a small crystal staff. "My name is Oren," she said. "I am the daughter of Princess Lyria of the Vithari Empire." Elias's heart stopped for a second. "Lyria's daughter?" She nodded. "Before my mother died, she made me promise to find you. She said you once gave your blood to save her life. She told me you were not just a human. You were the bridge between two worlds." Elias took a slow breath. The night wind brushed against his face, and for a moment, he could almost hear Lyria's voice again. "She's gone?" he asked quietly. Oren lowered her head. "She passed away 2 cycles ago. But she never stopped speaking of you. She said you gave her life twice, once with your blood and once with your kindness. When she died, she left me this." She opened her hand. Inside was a small glowing stone, the same kind of crystal the queen had once given Elias, but brighter. "She said this crystal belongs to you. It carries her final message." Elias's hands trembled as he took it. The moment his skin touched the stone, a soft light surrounded him. Lyria's voice filled the air, calm, clear, and full of warmth. Elias, if you are hearing this, it means my time has ended. But I kept my promise. I said I would repay you one day. My daughter, Oren, carries both our bloodlines, yours and mine. Human and Vithari united in her heart. Teach her what you taught me, compassion, courage, and hope. Let her see your world and learn what kindness means. The light faded slowly. Elias stood there in silence, staring at the glowing stone. For the first time in years, he felt tears on his face. Oren looked at him gently. She said you would take care of me. She said Earth would be the place where I could learn to be more than a princess. Elias looked at her. Young, brave, and so much like her mother. You're welcome here, he said softly. This world is not easy, but you'll learn fast. Oren smiled, her silver eyes bright in the night. Then I will stay. Over the next few weeks, she lived with him in the small mountain town. The people were surprised at first, whispering about the strange alien girl walking beside the old soldier. But Oren's kindness soon won their hearts. She helped children fix broken drones, learned to cook human food, and watched the sunset every evening with Elias. Sometimes, when they sat outside, she asked him about her mother. He told her stories, about the battlefield, about the transfusion, about how she had saved a kingdom with compassion instead of weapons. Oren listened quietly, her eyes filled with pride. One night she said softly, "You loved her, didn't you?" Elias didn't answer right away. He looked up at the stars. "In my own way," he said finally. "Not the kind of love people talk about, but the kind that stays even when everything else fades." She smiled gently. "Then she was right to send me to you." He looked at her with a faint smile. "You have her strength. And your stubborn heart," she said playfully. They both laughed quietly under the endless sky. The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night, as if two worlds were watching together. And though Lariah was gone, her promise lived on in her daughter, and in the human who once gave his blood to save her life. Together they carried the legacy of two species, proof that compassion could cross galaxies and that sometimes one simple act of kindness could change the fate of worlds. Years passed quietly on Earth. Oren had grown from a curious alien girl into a graceful young woman. Her blue skin had softened to a lighter shade, almost silver under the sunlight, and her silver eyes carried calm wisdom far beyond her age. The townspeople who once whispered behind her back now smiled whenever she passed. To them, she was no longer strange. She was simply Oren, the kind girl who helped, learned, and smiled like she belonged. Elias had grown older too. His hair had turned gray and his steps had slowed, but his eyes still carried that same quiet strength. Together they built a peaceful life in the small mountain home. Oren learned the ways of humans, their emotions, their work, their kindness, and even their mistakes. She loved their music, their laughter, and the way they never gave up even when the odds were against them. But deep inside, she knew her destiny was bigger than the little town. Her mother's message always echoed in her heart. She had been sent here for a reason, to understand humans, not just live among them. One morning, as the sun rose behind the mountains, a fleet of silver ships appeared in the sky. The people of the town ran outside, frightened at first, thinking it might be another invasion. But the ships did not attack. They hovered silently above the clouds, glowing softly. One ship descended slowly near the valley. Elias and Oren stood together, watching. He held the pendant around his neck. It glowed for the first time in years. "They've come for you," he said quietly. Oren nodded, her heart beating fast. Maybe, or maybe they came for both of us. When the ramp opened, tall figures in silver armor stepped out. Their leader, a woman with bright markings on her skin, bowed deeply before Oren. "Princess Oren of House Vethar," she said respectfully. "Your people call for you. The council wishes to meet you. The galaxy is changing and they need your guidance." Elias looked at her with a small smile. "Looks like the universe hasn't forgotten you." Oren turned to him. "I don't want to leave you." He shook his head gently. "You were never meant to stay hidden here forever. Your mother sent you to learn, and you did. Now it's time to use what you've learned." Tears formed in her eyes. "Will I see you again?" He touched her shoulder softly. "You'll always see me every time you look up at the stars." Before she left, she gave him a small metal badge marked with the royal crest of the Vithari. "Keep this. It will remind you that you are part of us too." He nodded and smiled faintly. "And you'll always be part of Earth." The ship took her away into the sky. The townspeople watched as the light vanished, leaving only a trail of silver dust in the clouds. For weeks, Elias felt the quiet emptiness of her absence, but he also felt proud. He knew she would do great things. In the vast hall of the Vithari Council, Arin stood tall before the leaders of her mother's empire. Many of them had never seen a half-human before. They whispered among themselves, curious and uncertain. The council leader finally spoke. "You have lived among humans. Tell us what they are truly like." Arin raised her head. "They are not perfect. They fight, they struggle, they make mistakes. But they love, they forgive, and they hope. They are strong not because of power, but because of heart. My mother saw that in one human, the one who gave her life when he had no reason to. He was proof that compassion is not weakness. It is strength." The hall fell silent. The council members looked at one another, then at her. One of them said, "And what do you wish for us now, princess?" Arin took a breath and said, "Peace. Not because we fear war, but because we finally understand life. My mother's blood and the human blood in me prove that we are not meant to destroy each other. We are meant to grow together." Her words spread across the galaxy. Over the next few years, both human and Vithari leaders began to communicate again. Trade routes opened. Scientists from both sides worked together. For the first time in centuries, humans and aliens shared the same table, not as enemies, but as allies. Elias lived to see the day when the first joint human-Vithari alliance was signed. On the news, he saw Arin standing before millions, her silver hair shining under the lights. She looked proud and peaceful. When she spoke, the world listened. Her voice carried the same warmth her mother once had. That night, Elias sat outside his small home again. The stars above shimmered brighter than ever. He held the pendant in his hand, feeling its gentle pulse. A soft wind blew, carrying a faint whisper, one that sounded almost like Lyria's voice saying, "Thank you." He smiled, his heart full. "No," he whispered back. "Thank you." Years later, when humans and Vithari built a great monument in the middle of the galaxy, two statues stood side by side. One of Princess Lyria, the alien who believed in compassion, and one of Elias Grant, the human who gave his blood to save her life. Between them was carved a single line in both languages. From one heartbeat, two worlds were born. And far above, in the silent sky of endless stars, the light of their legacy continued to shine, reminding every traveler, every child, and every world that kindness could cross galaxies, and one act of humanity could change the destiny of the universe forever.